Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Words for Life. I'm your host, High Performance Coach Spence. Today, we have a honored, remarkable guest, Barry Drew, with us on the call. Barry, it is fantastic to have you here.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Really appreciate the invite. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this one as well. Listeners, if you're not familiar with Barry, he is a passionate individual with a profound interest in human behavior, growth, spirituality, and the psychology of success. He has over 15 years of hands-on experience and has worked with a diverse range of people from individuals including parents, children's, business owners, leaders, athletes, guiding them not only to overcome the challenges in their life, but also truly grow from them and expand and enjoy further their aspects of their lives that they might not even be aware of now. Barry's personal journey is actually quite a fascinating one as well, exploring coaching, psychotherapy, shamanism, neurolinguistic programming, and craniosacral therapy, and even more than that. His belief is in tailoring the approach to each individual is the most effective way to do change, and it's really, really inspiring how he goes about that. Barry does work with groups and individuals on a one-on-one basis, either online or in person from Ireland. Barry, we're eager to dive into what really drives you to help others and the quote that inspires you. So, without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Barry.
Thanks, Stephen. Very kind with your words.
Well, absolutely. Like I said, you've got some amazing background. You've helped a lot of people. So let's just get right into it. What drives you to help people? What inspires you? What makes you want to go help?
That's a very good question, Stephen. I suppose when I think about it now, some of it's from my own past experience of my own challenges I've had to overcome, but also when I reflect now, I come from a family that are very very helpful, always keen to help others. Give somebody a handout if they needed it, and as we say here in Ireland, I didn't lick it off the ground. It was very much present as I was growing up. But then also, I had my own challenges, and it's this innate desire to, initially, not for people not to suffer or to not be in pain, particularly more so now needlessly. And the more, I suppose, I've done my own personal work on myself, the more I know that it's possible, and I know it's doable not to suffer needlessly, because I've stayed in periods of my life with belief systems and behaviors that they just weren't helping me be the best version of myself, to put it quite simply. So, hopefully that gives a little bit of an insight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your background of where you came from, and it sounds like that's really what drove you, that upbringing and the desire to see people succeed is a pretty big thing that drives you, right?
Yeah. And then I suppose on an egotistical level, you get a bit of a dopamine hit when you do help somebody, and you have overcome whether it's a physical pain or emotional block like that. It's just great to see them, grow from that, or to move on from that. So it's not all altruistic.
Yeah, I like to call that one the tingles personally. Whenever
Yeah.
you see somebody have an aha moment or succeed, it is that dopamine hit. And it's not, I definitely understand the egotistical side because it's something we get out of it, but it's through somebody succeeding and moving forward in their lives and making things better. So I think that's really the key of what you said, is making things better.
Absolutely. They're either moving or moving beyond that inner struggle, and again, partly because I can identify with that inner struggle in my own ways, and the feeling associated with becoming free of it. It is quite liberating.
And that's probably one of the important aspects of it, is that sometimes people don't realize, as before they even choose to sign up with a coach, that they don't realize the opportunity or the possibility that's out there until they go talk out loud to them. Sometimes it's just accountability, and sometimes it's saying things out loud and being asked the questions that you don't normally think about yourself, that can be that liberation from your own mindset and helping you develop further. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I completely agree, but I also am completely biased. Yeah, it's given that space, you know, that for all the things that are either in your head or in your heart that just haven't um, had been given a chance to articulate. You know, it does. So, in my own experience and from working with clients and that, it, it gives people an opportunity not just to think or to say what they're saying, but also to connect actually with how they actually feel with what's going on inside. And that can really very how
Mhm.
you feel, or your attitude, or your relationship to what's going on inside can very much dictate how and what way you're going to process that, whatever that is, and how you're going to experience your own life. So yeah, I'm completely on board with you on that.
Wonderful. Now you've got some interesting kind of personal backgrounds behind here: coaching, psychotherapy, shamanism. I saw that
Yeah.
one. I went, "Oh, now that's interesting." I mean, I've heard of it, but for our listeners who maybe not might not be familiar, do you want to kind of go into that a little further?
On the shamanic end, or all of
Yeah.
them?
Hmm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Mostly the shamanic, and I'm more curious
Yeah,
about that. I mean, we can go into any
yeah.
of them,
No,
but that
no.
one I think might be
we,
less common.
yeah, we could be here all day otherwise.
You're
Uh,
right.
the shamanic. Well, I suppose my own personal journey into shamanism. Like when I was younger, I came home from college and I just saw this pamphlet at home, and I can't say what it was, but I just knew I wanted to go to this workshop, and I was a student. I didn't have any money, and I just decided I was going to go anyway, and it really started just to experience a completely different way of looking at things for me at that time. But I don't consider myself, you know, that stereotypical formal shaman that you might think of, like in the rainforest. Of course, there's, you know, I have lots and lots and lots to learn in regards to that, but it is very much for my own personal journey. It's very much an innate thing that I feel very connected to. I have done some courses in the past, but also worked with a shaman for a good 5-10 years. But it's more urban shamanism, which it really is integrating. You know, yes, our daily life, or I suppose of the Western world, how we go about, but also introducing that spiritual, that energetic aspect of it. That there's more than just what we see. There's something behind the scenes, so to speak, and that sometimes can involve. There's many different techniques and things with which shamanic work. But one of the things that I use is the shamanic drum as a form of meditation, or what can be called a journey. And in this journey, you're bringing your brain, so to speak, or into an altered state of consciousness. So slowing down the brainwave state, and that's where the adventure can begin. It's going into those inner worlds to seek to look for guidance, for help, for insight into a wider range of things. It can be some people who do shamanic work, or can specialize in various different things, whether it's an emotional or a physical level. I suppose I don't know what I'm reluctant to say it expertise, but my what I feel drawn to most is very much with the emotional and mental realm, of what's going on for people within there, and that's how I suppose integrate that into, I suppose, the modern day living, because I don't live in a rainforest, whether that's fortunately or unfortunately, and what I do is bringing in that energetic, that aspect, that there's more to us than just the physical. That it is, we are these energetic beings, that everything is energy, and energy is everything, and it just it can add an extra depth, or an extra layer to both the work and also to our life. So that's my little riff on that. I don't know if I've, for all those who are more au fait with shamanism, hopefully I've done it justice. I know there's a lot more stuff we probably go into, but that's just my take on it personally.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, that kind of the world behind the veil. It sounds like it's
Yeah,
the things that are there, but maybe we don't see them, but we interact with them through our energy on a regular basis.
hmm.
It's a very interesting concept. One of the quotes that comes to mind is "Where the mind goes, energy flows." Right, and that's the
Exactly.
idea that it's
Yeah,
that energy that goes throughout the world in plants, humans, everything. So really connecting with that and understanding on a deeper level and trying to peer behind that veil, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's developing or building a relationship with both with yourself and with I suppose all aspects of your own life or with the world externally. But it does very much starts internally, where and even as you said, you know, whether it's with the plants or uh, with the land or with people, even with, you know, real practical things in this
Mm-hmm.
Western world with money and that, you know, that unconscious relationship, you know, because it's just it's an energy, it's a flow, it's a flow of energy anyway. We have it anyway. It's whether we're conscious of it or not, and uh, it can really help us, you know, tune into ourselves and listen to actually what actually is going on for us, and how we can improve that relationship with ourselves and with our internal environment and externally. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that probably actually is a good segue actually into your quote if you're ready to get into that.
I am indeed. Well, I just shoot.
Okay,
Well, I
go
just shoot
for
it
it.
out. Yeah. So it's actually before I gave you the quote, I forgot I actually had it on my website. So I'm very much aligned with this. But it's a quote by Wayne Dyer. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's definitely it forms a well, I resonated with it anyway, but it personally because it's my perception of how of myself in the past was not always fantastic to say the least. But over the years and over time, and as I changed my how I looked at myself, you know, how I felt and about myself, etc., changed. But also that on a external to me, that when I'm working with people, like I'm not there to help to fix anything in any shape or form. It's really the core of it is really about altering the perception, whether what people, the relationship people have with themselves, or again, whether it's money, relationships, career, their hopes, their dreams, their wishes, etc. And I get really excited about that because you can see and feel, you can see the changes and the feelings that's occur. The change of feelings that are occurring in that person at that time, just by, you know, taking a different view of actually what's going on or where they're at. And it's personally, I suppose I think it's a form of magic. Like, but it's so simple, but it also can be so challenging at the same time. It's easy. It's easy when it's not you.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the idea of like stepping outside of yourself. We often get caught up in our own minds and the way we've seen something that it is a challenge to step back and say, what does this look like for someone else? What does it look like if I was looking at myself? And it can be a challenge to go and look at yourself in that third person. What really speaks out to me is, if you go, there's a good example, I think, in Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. In the book there, they give an example of an image of a woman. And depending on how you look at it, it's either an older lady or it's a young woman. And that goes back to the way you look at things, things change. And if you start shifting your perspective, you can see one or the other. This is a really good example of that. But that also applies to life. When you go and see somebody maybe on, let's say it's a panhandler that's, asking for money, and you might initially think, oh, they're not we're doing a job. They're not, they're just asking for handouts. It's like, well, the other perspective or the way you could look at it could be they just recently lost their job. They're looking for a way to support their family in between job interviews. So it's shifting that mindset, and it can make a world of a difference between how you see somebody or how you see an event or anything. Even looking back at your own past, if you go look at it with a different lens and possibly a different perspective, as you said,
Yeah.
it really can change your life. And it's very powerful, as you said.
Yeah, completely. Again, I completely agree with you. I'm not going to be very. I'm not a challenging guest, but you're speaking my kind of language.
Oh
But
no, you're
yeah.
great. This is perfect. And the way I see this is that for our listeners, what they can do is take a moment and look at something from your past. Look at something maybe even in the present moment, or maybe even looking at something you're thinking about in the future. And if it is something that doesn't sit right with you, or something that possibly has some negative emotions or negative energy associated to it, take a moment and think of it from someone else's perspective or from a different lens, and see how much of a difference that can make in your life.
Yeah, that's
I think
great.
that's a very powerful way that the listeners can use this quote. Any additional thoughts on that, Barry, on how our listeners could use this quote?
Yeah, well, I think just what you said there, yeah, like just looking at doing the best to look at it in a third person, or that's other way of actually, if you were to, if it was somebody else, what would you suggest that they, or the way that they could look at it, or the lesson they could take from it, like, or how they would talk if it is about something that's going on about them in their past, how they'd talk to them, to talk to how they, sorry, suggest that other person would talk to themselves. That it
Mhm.
seems, it sometimes, it can seem so simple and maybe so silly, but it really can work. Like, it really can be a very very effective tool, like, for to create that change without having to do a whole pile, except invest a little time with yourself.
Yeah. And I actually kind of have a perfect example from my own personal experience of, I went through burnout myself. And at the time, it was like, this is horrible. I'm hurting. It doesn't make sense to me. I can't figure out what's going on. And at the time, that was the lens. Pain and suffering was the lens I was looking at my situation through. But I've gone back and reviewed those things in my life and looked at it through a different lens of learning and growth. And now I see this as an opportunity to take my experience, and kind of similar like you had, your experiences, you now bring those forward in your coaching, in your help, in your what I would call helping work to others. And that's a perfect example of you reframe something that's occurred in your life. And reframing is one of the terms we use, but also a great way to look at it is you change the lens in which you view something. And in my case, I've taken it and changed it from something that hurt, caused pain and suffering, to something that helped me grow, develop, and inspired me to go and help others either shorten their time of suffering and pain or prevent it altogether.
Yeah,
So I really think our listeners can use this quote, and it's a very powerful one, although it's not very long, but it's very, very powerful.
yeah, yeah. I'd echo that. Yeah, it's definitely something that has stayed with me for, I would say it's well over 10 years now at this stage. So since I've come across it, like, so, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, again, this quote is good just for our listeners. Again, it's when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Extremely powerful. Barry, I really want to say thanks very much for your time on today's episode. I think our listeners have gained a lot just learning from your background in shamanism. That was something that I did not really understand before. So that was a great explanation, gave me some insight, and a really powerful quote that people can go and apply in their daily lives and hopefully improve the way they live. Any closing thoughts or things you'd want to let our listeners know before we close out?
No, just really, Stephen, just to thank you again for coming on. Really enjoyed that conversation. It definitely challenged me, got me thinking about explaining, particularly shamanism. There's probably some brushing up to do with that, but no, love the work you're doing, and I'd highly recommend people just play with the suggestion that you offered today. So thank you again.
Absolutely. And for folks listening today, I'm going to include down below like Barry's social information and contacts and things like that. Again, he does have online one-on-ones and group sessions. I think you actually have one coming up pretty soon, a retreat. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I've got a treat in Portugal. That's what a colleague of mine, Catherine Ryan, in Limerick. Well, it's in the southwest of Ireland. We're going over to Portugal now from the 15th to the 20th of February for some connection time. So
Yeah,
that should be
there
fun.
you go. Yeah, so he's probably going to have more events and more retreats like these in the future. So definitely stay abreast of what he has going on. Barry is, very conscientious. He understands the energy. He's got that 15 years of experience to really help people grow. So if you're interested in working with him, we'll have his information listed in the description. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm pretty sure he's happy and willing to work with whoever wants to go and improve their life, regardless of where they're at.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you're very good. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we close out, again, I want to thank you all for listening today. Keep in mind, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Take that going forward into your life and use it to improve the way you look at the world and the way you look at the situations in your life. Again, Barry, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Words for Life. And thank you all for tuning in as well. Have a wonderful rest of the day.